So it seems that we have a problem with diversity. Diversity is a problem rather than a gift to embrace. And why has that happened over the centuries or decades in the past? No? We become very suspicious or even afraid of the other, whoever that other might be. They are the problem. And even as Christians, we have actually lost the humility to accept that we are probably part of the problem. It is the others who are broken. For example, we talk about terrorism or violence in the name of religion. And there is a tendency in the West, particularly in our country and America, to blame Muslims for violence. It just means that we have lost a historical perspective. Christians have been violent for centuries. So violence is not an invention of Islam, because Islam came much later, after centuries of violence from Christians in different contexts. No? And the colonial period and all that happened after that would tell us what exactly is the situation when it comes to violence in the name of religion. So it is not an Islamic invention as such. Look at the Middle East. The modern Islamic terrorism, in one sense, is response to state-sponsored terrorism in Palestine, which is supported by the so-called Christian West. So you are calling a reaction as action. So I'm just trying to put that in our perspective. And we can say, at least a lot of Christians say, that Islam or Islamic scriptures teach violence. Somebody else can actually read Christian scriptures and say the same. The Old Testament has got enough passages there justifying violence. And we have a way of explaining that away. And we need to give the same kind of generosity to others too. They can also explain those passages away. So what is lacking is this humility. All the faith traditions carry embedded chaos or bias, which can be utilized to justify injustice. Whether it is Christian theology or Christian scriptures and tradition, or Islamic or Hindu or Buddhist, all the traditions, all the faith traditions carry embedded bias, which can be utilized to justify injustice and violence. But they also have streams of liberation motives. Because I work as a liberation theologian. About 20 years ago, I worked with a group of Islamic liberation theologians. There is a strong liberation theology within the Islamic religious thinking. So even that notion of liberation, the holistic liberation of the world, is not limited to Christian thinking. So we need to see that on one hand, whether it is Christian, Muslim, or Hindu, or Buddhist, we all have, probably Buddhism doesn't have. Okay? Buddhism is a different case altogether. It's an atheistic religion anyway. It doesn't have actually God there, but it is very much ethical. Maybe that's one religion that has nothing in the teaching that you can quote to support violence. But every other religion has got something some work that could be used by someone wanting to legitimize violence or injustice. But we need to see that all those traditions also got streams of liberation motifs. So what is the ground for engaging with other religions? Firstly, there is a transcendental purpose, which means God. All the religions, except Buddhism, talk about God. But even the Buddhist traditions and practices can help us. Because there are quite a lot of readings and writings and research recently done about the Buddhist practices that would aid devotion in a Christian way. But basically, God is something common to all the religions. The world is searching for a purpose and meaning. And God becomes important as a kind of concept and reality in dealing with the meaninglessness and purposelessness of humanity. And secularism, a fundamentally secularism, is becoming the norm in many of the Western communities. I normally say that secularism is a faith in itself, no? Because you are still putting your faith in something. And it has got the extreme secularism has got everything in common with a fundamentalist religion. Because it is also about certain presuppositions which are not proved. You only have faith. So I don't want to go into details, but that's what I mean by a transcendental purpose. That is the first ground for engaging with other religions. God. In the midst of meaninglessness and lack of purpose, the world's search for meaning, God is important. And if every religion speaks about God, at least we have something in common to offer to the world. And to counter the secularism, the extreme secularism, which is more fundamentalist at this stage, again, you need that transcendental dimension. So that is one ground for the religions to engage with one another and work together. Secondly, there is concern for humanity. All religions have a concern for humanity. Love and service lie at the heart of religious traditions. There is no religion that actually tells you not to have care for humanity or even not to love others. So there is something called common good that we work together about. So religious traditions working together for common good. So that's what I mean by concern for humanity. Thirdly, there is learning. The ground for our engagement with others is learning. We learn through our engagement. There are different levels of learning. One aspect is self-understanding. We understand ourselves better in dialogue with others. My understanding of Trinity was challenged and developed because of my engagement with my Muslim friends. One of my classmates in the university, so that I'm talking about 35 years ago, was a lovely young woman. I still keep in touch with her. She was the one who challenged my understanding of Trinity, which made me actually to work harder to make sense of this doctrine called Trinity. The Bible never talks about Trinity. The word Trinity is not there, but the reality of God being revealed in three persons is there. How do you make sense of that? So it is this friend of mine coming from an Islamic background who challenged me to defend what I was thinking that time and even to sharpen my thinking. Now her 25-year-old daughter is stretching my mind again. Okay? I have never met her, but she is still in touch with me, you know. So self-understanding, learning about ourselves, our faith, our tradition. And also we learn about others. Learning is not just about ourselves, learning about others. Clearing misunderstanding. Because we have a lot of presuppositions about others. The others. We brand them as others. Christians have this wonderful idea in the West about who is inside and who is outside. And I heard people using the word Gentiles. Okay? It's very interesting. Oh, they are Gentiles. But when Paul spoke about Gentiles, it meant us. Okay? Anyone who was not a Jew. I don't know how many Jews are here or how many came from Jewish race as such. No? Anyone who is not a Jew is a Gentile. All of us. We are Gentiles. But we use the word Gentiles or heathens to refer to others as if we are not Gentiles. That's where this understanding of the self and the understanding of others become important. We need to understand ourselves better, and we need to understand others. Even the categories that we use might be wrong. And there is also learning about good practices and examples from each other. You learn. I am always touched by my Muslim brothers when we are together in a kind of conference or meeting. How do they insist on the rhythm of their prayer? They can just disappear to do their prayers and come back. They take it seriously. How do they engage their body? It is not just actually a kind of thing that goes on in your mind. Prayer in that understanding involves your whole person. That's why the body movements are also important prayer. They can't pray without actually those body movements. The holistic thing. Fasting, a discipline probably Christians have ignored in the West, no? So there is a lot that we learn from others in terms of practice and examples. And also I think another, so a transcendental purpose, a concern for humanity and learning. And fourthly, I would say witness. That is another ground for our involvement and engagement with others, because engagement itself is witness. As Christians, we witness Christ in everything we do. Even our dialogue partners do not want us to be less Christian. They want us to be Christian, to be rooted in our faith and in our tradition so that we can have dialogue. Otherwise, it is not a dialogue. So there is witness in our engagement and in our dialogue. But we need to be aware of the fact that others also witness. It's not just we who are witnessing. Others also witness. I think it is Leslie Newbegin who used the language of marketplace. We are in a kind of marketplace. You sell your product, but you need to know that others are selling products too. You might say that your product is the best product. As a salesperson, you will always do that. You will try to convince others of the benefit of buying this product. But somebody else will claim that product is much better. And if you are in a marketplace, presenting our story alongside other stories, that is still witness. So we do witness, and we need to recognize that it is mutual witness. We witness to our faith, and others witness to their faith too. And as Christians, we firmly believe that evangelism or witness is not our business. It is the work of the Holy Spirit. We share our stories. It is the Spirit that works, and we will have to leave it there. Others will challenge through their own examples. And in that mutual witness, others will help us to be self-critical. The arrogant way of evangelizing others is that we are never self-critical. We are critical of everything else, everybody else, or every other tradition. But mutual witness helps us to be self-critical, which goes with the Christian understanding of humility. We witness in humility, not in arrogance. And that's the benefit of mutual witness. That probably keeps us in our place, okay? Makes us humble, to put our stories alongside the stories available in the world, in that marketplace. And we witness Christ to them. So regardless of your particular theological position, you are still able to engage with others and witness to Christ. And in that common witness, something else also happens. You recognize that we have, at least in part, a common mission. You realize that there are common areas that you can witness together for the common good, working together with other religious traditions. There is common cause, and so become in one way partners in mission. I normally say that we are very good in defining boundaries. But as Christians and as people of faith, we should be more concerned about affirming the center rather than defining the boundaries. The boundaries could be still fluid and flexible. Our business is affirming the center, and maybe in witnessing with others, in that mutual witness, we will be able to affirm a center to some extent without even agreeing with each other fully on theological or ideological basis. The next aspect is our approaches to religious diversity. There are different approaches. So if you are engaging with other religious traditions, what is the approach we take? I'm not saying that one approach should be chosen over against the other, but there are three major kind of theories or approaches available in the marketplace. There is exclusivism, and there is inclusivism, and then there is pluralism. So those are the three main approaches when we think about engagement with other religions: exclusivism, inclusivism, and pluralism. So exclusivism is that particular approach where you would say, my religion is the only true one. This is the only true way. This is the only way for salvation. There is nothing else in the world. Deny validity to other faiths. Traditionally, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism are in one way exclusivist religions, because within the theological tradition and scriptures, there is that claim, kind of exclusivism, passages that would help you to be an exclusivist. Or there are plenty of verses which would aid your exclusivist ideology. So that is one option, exclusivism. My religion is the only religion. My way is the only way. This is the only way to reach God. And this is the only way to find salvation. And the next option is inclusivism. Inclusivism is seeing my God everywhere. You can include all the other stories within your story. So it will almost say that, yes, other religious traditions are fine. They have got actually valid things, but it is all valid because ultimately this is all because of Christ. Christ is in work in all those religions. And you have theologians like Karl Rahner and others who would speak about unknown Christians, because they are not Christians. They follow Christ in their own way. They don't know they are following Christ, but ultimately they are all following Christ. That is inclusivism. Which means in one way, we are saying other religions are inferior. They are complete only in Christ. Okay? They are complete only when that is brought within our stories. They are dependent on our tradition, ultimately. The third option is pluralism. It would say all religions, although they are different, are independently valid. They are independently valid. They don't need to be related to each other. Each religion is valid. All religions will have the same kind of end, same kind of goal. It will meet the same kind of purpose. Jesus is unique for us, but for others, others are also unique. So that is what we call pluralism. So you have those three approaches. You might be able to engage with other religions, holding on to any of these approaches. But the way you relate to others will be different. An extreme exclusive view or inclusive view won't help to treat others with respect. Because if we are so exclusive, if only my religion is the right religion, then there is no place for other religions. And if I'm extremely inclusive, it says that other religions are good, but they have only value when they are fulfilled through my understanding. Because ultimately, Christ is working in all the religions. And so they are still dependent on fulfillment in this particular way. Even an extreme pluralistic approach will mean there is no need for Christian witness then. There is no need for even mutual witness. We need to avoid extremisms. Personally, I would stand somewhere between inclusivism and pluralism. I would probably say that I am an inclusive pluralist. Okay. Okay. Inclusive pluralism, by which I mean they are not independently unique, but they are interrelated. And there is no superiority or inferiority. And I would avoid absolutism on one hand and relativism on the other. So we will need to probably reflect on how we actually understand others. As long as we are able to recognize that the stories of religious experience differ, my story is valid to me, and I firmly believe that that story is probably something that I can offer the world, but others also have different stories. Some kind of respect without considering other experiences inferior will be necessary. Moving on from there, how do we build relationship? I'll probably stop talking, and I want more of engagement and discussions. How do we build this kind of relationship? There are three things I want actually to suggest. First is dialogue. Dialogue. We need to talk. It is very rare in this country. That was one of the shocks when I moved from India to England 20 years ago, that people never spoke about faith outside the church. We don't speak faith. Back in India, we would speak about our faith, and we will listen to other people speaking about their faith too. So in the workplaces, there is no problem for them to sit around, maybe at the lunch time, and talk about their religious experience. Christians will share their experience, and Hindus and Muslims will do the same. They can listen to each other. But we need to build on that kind of dialogue. To speak out our faith, our stories, to share our stories, and to be able to listen to the stories of other people. That will help us to be self-critical too. When you listen to others, you become more humble. You realize the fault lines in your own argument, your approach. Dialogue doesn't mean agreement. If you all agree on everything, then there is no dialogue. It becomes a monologue. What I am suggesting is genuine dialogue. Our Muslim or Hindu friends do not want us to be less Christian. Because all these discussions around Christmas celebrations in the public places and schools, they don't come from other religions. When we had those discussions 2 years ago, I remember the Muslim Council of Britain and others saying that we really want you to celebrate Christmas. We want to celebrate it with you. Most of those objections came from the so-called Christians, or those who have no faith. So this is not about hiding our faith or compromising our faith or stop talking about our stories or stop witnessing. It is rather about being open to others, sharing our stories and enabling others to share their stories. That is dialogue. In a dialogue, if it is interreligious dialogue, we need to be rooted in faith. It's only if you are rooted in faith, it becomes interreligious dialogue. Because the dialogue is about faith. And it will challenge us. Sometimes it is that kind of dialogue which will even strengthen your own faith. You recognize sometimes that your faith is so weak, you can't even answer a question about your faith. It challenges us. It corrects us sometimes, and it helps us to be self-critical and humble. So dialogue is one aspect of our engagement with others. The second is mutual support. We need to lend a voice to the other where necessary. Support community initiatives, activities. I remember when I used to chair the Council for Interfaith Dialogue in Kent, there were some issues with the Muslim community, particularly with burials, because the tradition is that you bury the body. You don't actually keep in cold storage, you just need to bury the body once someone dies, which means that arrangements have to be made within a day. And sometimes our systems are not very helpful. So the Muslim community in Kent wanted someone, or the council and the burial board asked actually someone to represent Muslims in the discussion. You know who they elected? They sent me. So Father John, he is actually our representative. How do we enable and support the living of our brothers and sisters? Same thing happened in another context with Buddhist community. They were looking for a place to be converted as Buddhist temple. And then they needed to have discussions with the local authority. And they asked me to do that. And finally, we got a place for them. We need to be able to support and help, mutual support, and they helped us too. We worked as a kind of interfaith group, supported each other's activities. When I moved parish, when I was collated as vicar of another parish, it was an interfaith event. And they all turned up. And then thirdly, there is joint efforts. It's not just supporting somebody else's activity, but it is also holding joint events, working together. As I said, we will find there is a common mission in serving the humanity for the common good. And we need to learn to work together. There are examples, because I am involved in the refugee support for Britain and Ireland. And recently, I've been able to convene meetings of people who are involved in refugee support nationally and in Ireland and Scotland and Wales too. And they come from all faith traditions. Now I have a dinner meeting with the CEOs of various charities working in the refugee support, and they come from different faith traditions. And when we sit together, we find our faith inspiring us to do what we do. Joint efforts, working together. It happens in many of the local contexts. Homeless charities, a good number of them locally are joint initiatives. Grenfell Tower, when that happened, you would have noticed that actually there were Muslims supporting events in the church and Christians supporting in the events in the mosque. They worked together. We need to learn to work together. Mutual understanding and cooperation. that will help us to transcend the divisions. In our title or in our topic for the conference, we said in the context of diversity, we have to accept diversity as a positive gift. It is the divisions we want to transcend. We don't want to transcend diversity. We don't want everything to look the same. So diversity is a given gift. And we need to accept it as a gift from God. And how do we transcend divisions which come out of this diversity, which don't need to? So I'm just going to stop there. And I think what would be interesting is to engage with one another, maybe in your own tables, to share one thing you have learned in your engagement with other people, others. Let's call others, by which I mean someone from another faith tradition.